All right, we're gonna do a little time-killing project today. Try to get a start on soil sampling. We are kind of in a holding pattern as far as harvest goes. I got a deal made on my combine tracks. Where can I set you? That's aluminum, so you're not stuck, but you'll sit there. I got a deal made on my combine tracks. Those will hopefully be on a truck heading this way from Canada sometime next week. The shipping company that I was working with was hoping, I might have to modify them holes a little bit. The shipping company I was working with, they are out of, I'm trying to think of, I'm going to butcher this name, Guelph, Ontario, Canada. And they were hoping to have them on a truck and here before next Friday, was their hope. But as of Tuesday, their truck was in Alberta heading back this way. So hopefully it's back by now, and they had to get it back and reset and figure out a load schedule and go from there. But like I say, they were hoping they were going to be here before the end of next week. Would be ideal. So we're kind of in a holding pattern pending how that ends up going. And I'm going to call tomorrow and see where they're at on it and where that conversation ends up. Is going to determine whether I try to go mud some more beans or if I hold out and wait for the tracks to show up. And if it looks like the tracks are indeed going to show up by the end of next week, then I'm going to get the 7300 cleaned up and get it ready to get put away, because that will be the end of her fall. Because once the tracks are on the 8700, it's going to finish everything, because I'm tired of playing in the mud. But anyhow, I'm fiddly. I can't do 10 things at once here. So with that being said, that's where we're at on harvest. I made this yesterday because this thing really needed a rack box to make soil sampling easier, and that's what we're going to go do once I get this bolted down. I made this last night and didn't have any bolts here to put it on, so I had to get bolts from Dad. I'm going to do that real quick, so I'm not trying to talk and do this all at one time, and then we'll go do a little bit of soil sampling yet tonight. Okay, that's better. I was hoping that those things would go in, you know, bolt down, but with the little bit of room you got to get your hand under there to feed everything, it's just easier to put the bolt in from the bottom. Sorry, I know this isn't that interesting. I'm struggling for content at the moment because I don't really want to get into any major projects, because once them tracks show up, it's basically gonna, well, I'm not gonna say it's gonna be balls to the walls, because my uncle's, I tested it Monday, yeah, Monday, and, or was it last week? Might have been last week. Whatever day it was, I tested it and it was still at 32% moisture. And honestly, as far as getting the corn off, that's the field that scares me more than, well, I mean, once I got the tracks, we'll walk right over it, but that's the field that scares me the most, because we haven't had any, well, we had some rain last night, but I took my gauge down because we had that, we've been getting some frosts, and obviously at this point I really don't care how much rain we get anymore, because anything is too much. But we had some rain last night, but before that we haven't had any measurable rain since, what, beginning of last week. And there's spots at my uncle's where there's still 2 inches of water standing out in the back, like back behind that big waterway that I got back there. And up in the front, in the low spot, there's that bad spot where all the runoff comes down from the cow lot that makes that great big monster wet hole. So honestly, of all the fields I've got left, my uncle's is what scares me the most, and it's what I know I'm going to need them tracks to get over. But anyway, so that corn's gonna have to wait a few more weeks to dry down, because I'm not hauling it in at 30%, because at 30%, well, you're losing 50 cents a bushel drying charge up to 25%, and then from 25 to 30, or from 25 up, I should say, because I don't actually know when they start rejecting, but from 25 and above, you're at 10 cents a point instead of 5 cents a point. So there's another 50 cents for those 5 points. So at 30%, you are losing $1 a bushel right off the top. That's before test weight, dock, that's before everything. So right now, I think October, November delivery corn, well, November delivery now because October's done and over with, but November delivery corn, I think, is what closed at $4.39 today. Not $4.39 on the board, but $4.39 delivery price. I don't know, I didn't look and see what it closed at on the board, but so if you hauled in a 30% load of corn, you're at $3.39 right off the top. That's gone. You're not getting it back. I can't haul corn. I mean, I could haul corn in for that. I don't want to haul corn in for that, because that's a hard pill to swallow. That's $300 a load. So anyhow, let's go do some soil sampling. Let me get the dogs wrangled here. And in case anybody's wondering, the field we gotta go to is just right around the corner. So this is how we're riding. Yeah, this is how we're riding. Well, we pulled in and both munchkins took off after deer. There's one. Where's the midget? There's the midget. I'll give Lily one thing. For the size of her legs, she is stupid fast. Like, she can keep right up with Teeter, and Teeter ain't no slouch. She just can't keep up with Teeter for very long. I was gonna grab one of the good break open soil probes from work, because I hate this probe. This probe sucks, but I kind of forgot. And before anybody freaks out, I was only in like second gear on the way here, not much more than like 8 miles an hour. This week, I just racked my got all my soil. I forgot to label the bag, so before I put anything in there I gotta label it. But sure is a pretty sunset tonight. We should be getting some more of these. It sounds like November is gonna straighten out as of right now, unless the forecast has changed. We're good until the 16th. And then we got a bunch of rain again after that. So I don't know. Like I say, I got a call tomorrow, figure out, because obviously tomorrow will be Friday. Of course you guys won't know that because, well, now you know it, but you won't see this video till tomorrow night probably. But so I got a call tomorrow, see where the shipping company's at on the tracks. It looks like they're going to be here before the end of next week, so I can get them on the combine. But I'm just going to let the beans set. If they're not going to be here by next week, I'm probably going to try to get some beans cut, even if I got to keep mudding them out as much as I don't want to. But God, the thought of letting the beans stay until the end of November is just not very appealing. So anyhow, we will continue this project tomorrow, but I'm running out of daylight, and any other fields I gotta go to from here on out we gotta haul to. So I might actually see if my boss has got a little two-wheel trailer that he used to sample with. I might see if I can borrow that, because that'll be easier than throwing this thing in the back of the truck. So anyhow, we'll catch you guys tomorrow. All right, so catching you tomorrow turned into catching you Saturday morning. Yesterday when I got off work, I finally got all the information I needed to wire the money to pay for those tracks. And I had never done a wire transfer before in my life, never had a reason to, and that's a little bit of a process. And by the time I got the paperwork printed off and got over to the bank and went through the process and yada yada yada, by the time I got back home it was 5:30, and at that point, this time of year, you basically got 15 minutes daylight left. So I didn't get back to soil sampling yesterday, but the tracks are paid for. Well, I missed apparently there's a cutoff time of day for wire transfer, and apparently it's 4 o'clock. Who knew? And I missed that by 10 minutes. So it's you know, it's in the system. It's just it won't process until Monday morning. But once that goes through, and Teeter, we're staying here. You can come on. Then where was I? Oh yeah. Once that processes and the guy is satisfied that he's got his money and yada yada yada, then we can get a hold of the trucking company, and they were hoping that they would have that on the docket for hopefully middle of the week next week. So Teeter, you don't belong over there. That being said, cold-blooded thing. I still don't know. Well, I was gonna say I don't know if I'm gonna try to cut beans today or not, but honestly I'm not so sure. We didn't get a little rain shower early this morning, because at first I thought it was a dew, but then driving here, it's dry underneath the trees on the road. Which lends itself more towards rain shower, which I get done sampling this. We're gonna drive over across the street real quick and check those beans and see how they look. But there is a weather guesser that's on YouTube that I wouldn't say that I follow him, but on occasion I do see some of his videos, and it wouldn't bother me if it wasn't for the fact that he
he has a track record of being pretty damn close to right 100% of the time. And he was forecasting that after Thanksgiving, granted Thanksgiving is still, I don't even remember what day of the week or what day of the month Thanksgiving falls on, but today's the 11th. So I mean, we don't have that many more days till Thanksgiving, but apparently after Thanksgiving week, the weather's supposed to take a turn for the worse. Everything's supposed to go to hell in a handbasket. So, as much as I don't want to have to go mud out beans, I think I might try to go cut some more beans. Rattling in the pods a little bit, but they don't sound too loose. Obviously, as you can tell by all the tracks, the deer have been out here working on them, but it doesn't look like they've done too much damage as of yet. These are some nice looking beans too. Oh yeah, they're tough. The question is, are the beans... They're a little doughy, but I do believe, though, the way they feel, I don't think this is a dew. I think we got a rain this morning. We had a chance. It wasn't much one, but the way things have been going this year, we've had greater chances of rain on the days when we only had 10% chances than on the days when we've had like 75% chances. Come out of the pod, you bastard. Oh yeah, they're doughy again. I think we got a rain. See, and this ground around here will give you a very false sense of security, because like right now I'm walking across it, not leaving a footprint. Can't hear any water coming out of the ground. But the way this ground works, man, they get tall down here in the low spot. The way this ground works, you'll get about a 2-inch, if you want to call it a crust, on top, and then it will be soup underneath. Oh yeah, let me get down here in the low spot. And there's not water standing, which is kind of impressive, but you can tell there was water here not very long ago. And you can hear it coming out of the ground. Like this right here, this will never support a combine. That's the worst part of it. I mean, these things are beautiful beans. You don't want to keep letting them stand like this. So in this field, I mean, this is my first year farming it again, but back when I first started farming it with my buddies years ago when I was in high school, that was back when, right after I got to 525, that was back even before I had the rice and canes on it yet. That's back when it still had the 14.9s on it that I sold last winter. This low spot here was so damn wet, we couldn't get all the way across it. And I had my 525 and my buddy had a John Deere 3300. And his had 18.4s on it, but even he couldn't get across it. So we just each picked a side of the field, and I was over here on this side, he was over there on that side, and we just drive in as far as we could get before we ran out of snot, and then back out, move over 2 more, because that was also when we were farming wide rows and had 2-row head, you know, move over the next 2 rows, go in, hit it again. And that's how we ran this whole field, combining it one way, starting a machine on either side, 2 rows at a time, just back in, back out, or drive in, back out. Like I say, right now there is no worse feeling in the world than not having than needing these tracks and not having them here. But the nice thing about getting them is I will never be put in this situation again. Because now that I've got them, I'm also not going to be the guy that has them sitting in the barn ready to rock and roll. And you got pretty marginal ground conditions and you're out there slithering around, but you can still kind of get across. I mean, once I got these tracks, if there's even a hint that I'm gonna be cutting ruts, guess what? The tracks are going on. You got them, you paid for them, you might as well use them. It'd be neat. And it's something, I mean, it'd be one of them deals where I'd have to get a sponsorship deal from a track company because I'd never be able to afford them, but it'd be cool to put a set of rubber tracks on that thing, just leave them on it and just have it as a track machine. That way you can road transport it with the tracks on and everything. But that being said, steel tracks will do things that rubber tracks will only laugh at. So, I don't know. But, on to the next field. Sorry, this video might end up a little long than boring, but it's a good time to cover some territory as far as talking about things. So, on to the next field. just got Mom and Dad's done here. Granddad hasn't gotten his deer corn yet. There's still ears on them stalks down there. Hopefully I left him enough. It looked like a lot more corn when I finished shelling it, and now it doesn't look like there's nearly as much down there. But anyway, so real quick, I just kind of wanted to explain a little bit about our ground that we got around here, because I had one person in particular tell me that I was stupid for buying these tracks, and I was just a dumb kid and I just needed to be patient and wait for ground conditions to improve. And naturally, it's always got to be people that don't farm within 100 miles of here and have no clue what kind of ground conditions we deal with. So in our little corner of paradise here, we are basically in a big fishbowl, and I realize I'm saying that as I'm standing on top of a hill, but this entire area, and I say basically from town here, not too much further that way, you start getting that way, the ground starts getting sandier, but basically from here over to where my muck is, which is roughly 5 miles that way, basically to the state line, which is about 2 miles that way, and then probably about 10 miles, and between 7 and 10 miles north of town. It's kind of a great big fishbowl, and you can thank the glacier for that, because that's really a big factor in why our ground around here is so messed up. And I say messed up, it's not messed up, but the reason that our ground is so interesting is all because this area is glacial outwash parent material, and it's just, you know, it's kind of a bag of tricks and you never know what you're going to get. But basically this is a big fishbowl, and you get down toward the state line, you're kind of driving up out of it. You drive to the east, you're kind of driving up out of it. Basically, no matter where you drive from here, you're driving up out of a hole. And by up out of a hole, I mean, I'm not talking you're driving up out of a mountain. The elevation change might just be a few feet, but for the most part, this area here in town is a giant hole. And that's also why we ended up like, we're this area, or this here where Mom and Dad's place is, I would say is like the eastern slope of it. And then down over there where my muck is, that is the low ground. You drive downhill to there, and then you get to the other side of Three Oaks where the muck kind of stops and the sand starts, and you're driving up out of it till you get to the lake, and then obviously you got the lake. And same way going north of town, you start running into a lot of muck, and then you get up by where my boss is around Baroda, and you drive up out of it, and you start seeing a lot of, well, most of that is sand up there. And then you head that way and you drive up out of it. Not really any more muck that way. From here over that way, it's all clay. And then you drive up out of it and you start hitting sand once you get over towards Niles Edwardsburg area. So our little piece of paradise right here is all this heavy ass gray clay, with occasional pockets. Well, I shouldn't say occasional pockets. We got large pockets of muck around here, obviously, like that big chunk down there where I farm. There's big chunks north of here, and then there is actually some muck down here in Indiana, but down in Indiana it's mostly muck surrounded by sand. Up here it's all muck surrounded by clay. And you do get some occasional pockets of sand up here in this area, because basically, for the most part, like the little square right there that juts off from the front of the field there, where that used to be yard, but that little square there, that's all sand. And then you get to the other side of, well, that depression there in Granddad's front yard, you drop through that depression and you're back into clay. And then you jump over the driveway and there's a little pocket of sand up on the hill, and then you get down to that front field in front of my grandma and grandpa's and you're back into clay. So there's occasional veins of sand, because basically what we have for the most part is anywhere between about 2 to 10 feet of nasty ass clay on top of sand. And there was and still are a lot of gravel pits around here, because you mine off you remove the clay off the top, and then you have sand as far as you can dig until you hit water. which doesn't take very long because this area also, because it is so low, has an incredibly high water table, which is why our drainage around here sucks. And by incredibly high, I mean, I got a buddy who's a well driller. He runs the rig, and so far the shallowest he's had to dig to hit reliable water is 2 feet, and the shallowest he's had to dig, I shouldn't say dig, the shallowest he's had to drill to hit water with pressure has been 4.5 feet. And by water with pressure, I'm not meaning he drilled down 4.5 feet and he had a geyser shooting out. I mean, he drilled down 4.5 feet and there was enough water pressure that it just kind of like, you know, oozed its way up out of the hole and started spreading out over the ground. So, I mean, our water table around here is right there. So as far as waiting for ground condition to improve, it's not going to happen in any sort of reasonable time frame, because you get through the clay, you run into the sand. The sand is generally saturated because that's where the water table's at. And it doesn't take a whole lot to get our clay saturated, because everything around here is 5-minute dirt. You're 5 minutes too early or you're 5 minutes too late, so it does not take a whole lot of water to take it from perfect to the mess we're dealing with now. Which is why it only took, what did my total end up being, like 6.7 inches to turn it into this sloppy muddy mess. That's literally all it took, and we weren't too terribly wet before that rain hit. It's just between the fact that we had that 6.5 inches of rain, we're now in November, so the sun is all coming out of the southern sky, so we have a very low intensity sunlight when we do get sun, and the sunny days are getting fewer and further between because it's Michigan in November. There's no solar radiation to dry the ground out. Basically, we're just relying on water going through the soil into the water table, and what little bit we get from the cold winds that we've been getting, because cold wind is not as efficient at drying ground as warm wind. So long story short, there's a reason that every farm around here, since tracks became a thing on combines back in the 70s, 80s, everybody around here had steel tracks. Almost every single farm. Clark's had tracks, Payne's had tracks, Seaford's had tracks. Saries have, I mean, in all these farms, well, Clark's don't exist anymore. Payne's don't exist anymore. It's kind of sad, all the farms that used to be around here that don't exist anymore, even just since I was a little kid. But anyhow, obviously rear wheel assist helps you, but this ground around here, once it gets to the point where we are at, soil moisture content wise, tracks. You need tracks. Every farm around here to this day is either, if they haven't bought a combine that has tracks fitted from the factory, they have a set of bolt-on tracks sitting in the barn for times like this. So it's not like I just pulled this track idea out of my ass. It's just, that is the best way to get over the ground that we have around here is tracks. Rear wheel assist helps, but it ain't the answer, because you're still going to cut ruts. It's just, you're just going to be able to slither across it rather than getting stuck like I did. So obviously if you got tracks and rear wheel assist, that's minty, but we're working towards that. So long story short, the reason that these tracks are showing up is because A, I don't ever want to be put in this position again. I just want to have tracks so that when this position does come, and it's going to happen, because this ain't going to be the last wet fall we ever have. And as a matter of fact, our falls have been getting wetter over the last couple of years. I don't ever want to be in this position again, so I'm buying the damn tracks. It's not like this is going to be the last time I ever use them. And I've already had some guys ask me, if it comes to that, if I can help them out shelling, because they're worried that they're not going to be able to get over their ground. So with my combine on tracks, I might be able to pick up a little custom work to help offset the cost of the tracks to begin with. So, but anyway, back to the soil. So it takes an incredibly long time to dry out because our water table's so high. The clay on top has a higher water holding capacity than the sand underneath, so the water wants to stay in the clay to begin with once the clay reaches its holding capacity. Because obviously if it's above holding capacity, the water just wants to go through because it has your over holding capacity, so it's either going to run off or try to get through as fast as it can until it reaches the equilibrium point of the holding capacity. And then, so in order to get this ground dry enough to support a combine, you're talking the magnitude of weeks, not days. Like, you're talking the end of December, you know, 5 to 6 weeks of guaranteed no rain before this ground gets back to a point where you can just reliably drive a combine over it. Now, there is ground around here because of the glacier and the way things got deposited and yada yada yada, where I could be cutting ruts and getting stuck on this side of the road, and then you jump to the other side of the road and it's a completely different deal. And they're not, it's just, unfortunately, I'm never lucky enough to be the guy on the other side of the road. I'm always the guy on this side of the road getting stuck, because that's just the ground I end up with. The joys of being a small guy. So there's that. And then he told me that I needed to wait till the ground froze or yada yada yada, which is a fine thought, except for the way our winters have been warming up around here. We've been ended up with more rain than snow, so that doesn't do you any good for freezing ground. And then when the ground has been freezing, it has not been freezing hard, and most of our hard freezing has been starting to show up in January, February time frame. December's have been just a mud fest. So I don't want to be shelling corn in January. Nobody wants to be shelling corn in January. So, long story short, the guy that left the comment knows who he is. I don't care where you farm. You probably know everything there is about farming where you're at. That doesn't mean you know jack shit about farming around here. So, anyhow, sorry, that was my little unhinged rant for the day. I just love it when guys that don't farm around here try to tell me how I need to farm, and then when I say no, I'm not going to do that, they call me a know-it-all punk, even though they have no idea what goes on around here. It's like, I don't claim to know it all. Matter of fact, I don't know anything, but I do know what's best for my operation, and I'm not here to tell anybody what's best for their operation. That's the nice thing about farming. Nobody has to do it the same way. I'm not saying that my way is right. I'm not saying that my way is wrong. I'm not saying your way is wrong. I'm not saying your way is right. But you do you, I'll do me, and everybody can get along. So anyhow, sorry, that was my 12-minute rant. So I got one more field left to do, and then we'll be done sampling for the day. Okay, last little field. And then I'll be out of ground that's actually got crop off of it. At least complete crop off of it. Tell you what, I like this little trailer. I borrowed it from my boss for doing this, because I figured it was a whole lot easier to just drag a trailer around and then haul this thing in the back of my truck and have to screw with ramps and all that crap. But I don't know if I like it enough to bother going out and buying one for my own use for the little bit that I would actually use it, because other than the four-wheeler and occasionally possibly a garden tractor, it's really kind of pointless for anything else I would look at doing with it. Oh, now you're cold again. I don't know what it is about my red equipment. The 8700, this, the 57 Cub, red stuff's just cold-blooded. My Cub, the 48, that one will start. Well, for the most part, it'll start whenever. I really need to overhaul the engine. I think the compression on it's lacking, I think, is its major issue. But, well, I mean, it's got more than one. It's way too deep. We don't farm that deep.
according to him,